Alrighty, here we are with Kelly Harris from the Haight Street Art Center. Thank you for being here. Kelly is the new executive director at the Haight Street Art Center, and we're going to find out because I don't really know if she's actually from the Bay Area, but she is going to tell us about everything from how she got to this job to being a badass drummer in a variety of bands, it sounds like, from what I'm catching. About the local community, about Lower Haight versus Upper Haight, and let's tie those together somehow. And welcome, Kelly.
Thank you, Linda. I'm super psyched to be here. I love your Stanley backdrop here.
Thank you.
I'm actually situated right in front of some of Stanley's early works here at the center.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I wish this place was pumping right now with folks, but here we are under these circumstances.
You do have the garden going though, right?
The garden gallery, yeah, that's really been a bonus for us during COVID. It's really a special space. Right now, we're actually featuring work from our elders, our Chinese American elders from Open House. Yes, yes.
Yeah, yes. Wait, I've got even a better one. There's that one, Year of the Ox.
Rock and roll, yes, Year of the Ox,
Yeah.
which symbolizes courage, which we all need coming into 2021. But this project was really special to my heart because I actually started out doing activities, arts, and music at the Institute on Aging.
Wow.
And yeah, so this was a great way for us to bridge the generations and tell stories through art, which is really an important piece of the work we're trying to do here at Haight Street Art Center.
That's badass.
Yeah, so I'm very proud of this.
That's over on California, isn't it? The Institute, the Aging.
On Geary and Arguello.
Oh, okay. I got it wrong. Okay. Good for you. That's like so from art. Okay. So let's get into your background. So the art, the rock and roll stuff. Tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from.
Well, I really want to throw out like the whole piece of going to school at USF and being a part of KUSF really was a
Richard
huge,
Gossett and all that.
and we're talking like the early 90s when the music scene here was really big. I mean, you could, the Mission was just on fire with shows. I remember seeing like the Jesus Lizard, I think what now is, well, somewhere over there on 16th. I'm not sure what the bar is now, but really like great acts like coming through San Francisco consistently. But that vibrant music scene, but really, KUSF really was like the introduction to really lots of arts and culture and SF at the time. And so, you can start there, but
I wish the 90s, I wish the 90s were still here, that's for sure. What a great time that was.
Great times.
What was your first concert? You personally get into music for a sec.
Wow, that's a really good question. I can think of a really cool show that I went to see, which was the Deep Throats, and this was at Chemo's on Polk Street. And the Deep Throats feature Tracy Lords, Sugar Magnolia, and Chris Johansson, who is a great artist. And they really had this New York Dolls vibe going. And to me, they were sort of the essence of like the early 90s, like music scene, just bridging like lots of interesting, beautiful things in their music and just like their presentation. And those were, so those kind of shows were just like a really big piece of what got me going and got me started in playing in bands. First band Well, yeah, but actually I was sort of like the token girl bass player. Unfortunately, you remember those days in the early 90s where every dude had a band and they were like, hey, we need a female bass player. Like, we really need to do this. So I played in some of those emo style bands. And that's kind of where I got my chops. And eventually started playing music with Elizabeth Davis, who was part of 7 Year Bitch in Seattle. And really, she was a huge mentor for me. I actually interviewed her for my senior thesis at USF on women in music in the 90s.
Wow.
I can speak to some of the posters I have. I think I have a Frank Kozik poster that has a 7 Year Bitch show from Seattle in the early 90s. So
have you ever thought of running an exhibit of posters from the 90s in the music scene in the Haight Street Art Center?
That's a great idea. I mean, I've been so busy since I've landed
Yeah, I
here.
bet.
The opportunities are enormous to tell stories. And
So yeah, I mean, not to cut off the music thing, but let's talk about your beginnings. How did you get here? And you started in October, right? Oh, sorry, last year, hit my knee.
yeah.
Yeah.
So interestingly enough, I was over at Open House, which is right next door to the Haight Street Art Center on Laguna Street. And Open House does programs, services, and housing for LGBTQ elders. So I did a lot of the fundraising over there, and got to know some of the board members here, and was always walking by, standing in line to get into these shows. And I was trying to get lunch with Peter McQuaid for like 3 years. This guy was just too busy to
Who we
really.
interviewed in our second edition. Yeah, he's a
Right.
bad. Yeah.
So anyway, I knew how important it was for me to get in the door, and I really wanted to start doing some programming with seniors, and at least do some touring through the center, bring some folks over here to experience this. And finally, it happened. I met Peter. I met Cheryl and Jeff were part of the board here, and the conversation started. And really, like I was telling you earlier, I think the universe sort of put me here right at the right moment. And really, what we're trying to do here is what Peter kind of started, which is tell stories through these amazing pieces of art and posters. And then also in the garden gallery, really just trying to bridge community. And, we're really in a unique space here at the Art Center. There's a really diverse group of people all surrounding us. So really to make sure we're encompassing all these voices here.
Yeah. In fact, so bad. What's the Martin Luther King quote that you just did the exhibit of? Voices, silent voices.
Silence of the good.
Silence of the Good, and my friend Eric McFadden,
Yeah.
shout out to Eric McFadden, an old friend of mine, did the music for that, right?
Rock and roll, yeah.
That was a great exhibit, and thank God I got to walk through the gardens. Like you said, we can't go inside, but it was so nice to be able to walk through some art. It was amazing.
Right. And I mean, our curators and staff here just do an excellent job of engaging new artists. And, we're really proud of what we've been able to do in the Garden Gallery. And like I said, it's just a great place where people can sort of see themselves, in the art and feel like their voices are heard. And really, we're providing a platform for folks who typically wouldn't have a platform to show their work. So this is, an important piece of the work we're doing right now as a staff.
Yeah, that's great. So you you got the gig from just standing in line and crashing your way in.
I mean, it was like, the Studio 54 piece where, people knew something was going on. They made people stand in line so people would draw attention to, what's this? I have to be part of this. This is the cool thing. This is what's rock and roll. And so, that was definitely, Peter set that up great. He with his lines.
Yeah.
So,
Now, let me ask you this, because it is down there. It's so for those people that don't know, it's Haight and Laguna, and for me, I mean, it's not that far down. But as far as bridging it, you were saying you might be bridging it with some of the places up here, curating some of the Haight Ashbury, the new heritage building up here. Can you speak to that a little bit? Yeah.
Well,
The Duell and Larson building, and they're calling it.
Right. Well, first off, let me tell you a little bit about a show we have coming up on.
Oh yeah, do yeah. Freeform.
Yeah. So Jeremy Fish did an amazing residency at the Duell and Larson building, and so we'll be featuring his work from his time spent there. And
cool.
It's been really interesting talking with the folks at SF Heritage. I mean, they're doing really incredible things over there. And so, yeah, the idea too, I mean, really is to sort of get the idea out that people should come and support these local neighborhoods. And, when we come out of COVID, San Francisco's going to look a lot different. I mean, and thank God we have people like Jeremy who've been around forever, who continue to raise awareness around some of these small businesses that have been around and have really created the culture here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
This exhibit, I think, is really going to speak to that. And of course, Duell and Larson's up the hill and we're down the hill, but really making sure that we represent what's happening here in the Haight. I mean, whether it's up there or down here, right?
Yeah, talk about community. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing about this magazine is it's hyper local, but with a global perspective. And I think in a weird way, the COVID has kind of made community even more important than ever. I mean, you walk out your front door, it's a blessing you get to leave your house. Like, oh my God, there's people. Oh my God, maybe I should be nice to the grocery, the local grocery, the local liquor store, the local, whatever it is, the flower shop. Communicate with people. Say, turn people onto stuff. Like, hey, there's a cool exhibit down the road. You should check it out. And communicating. That's like so important. And the lack of music that we can't see live. And I don't know why I brought that up, but doing it via Zoom. I mean, there's stuff that is happening on Zoom that's super cool. Like, and even what we're doing here. Like, I want people to hear what you're doing because they might not know what's going on at the art center otherwise.
I mean, another really cool thing that we've done is we're working with Family Affair, which is a small gallery in the Lower Haight. And Freddie over there has really sort of been doing a lot of great work in messaging. I don't know if you've seen those Lower Haight signs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's really just been around like building community and community alliances. And so we're doing actually a 50th anniversary print for the St. John Coltrane Church. So he's sort of our artist in residency upstairs up in the print shop. And so it's been really cool to think about what are the things we want to support. We have this space here, this amazing space.
Yeah.
And so right now I think is really the time to sort of bring folks in who've been in community for a long time, who are really focused on these historical, places and businesses that we need to support. And so that's a big part of what we want to offer to people. Our print shop is amazing up there. And really poster art is one of the ways to really get a message out to community. I mean, I remember doing the wheat pasting under the bridge over there on like DuBose for one of my bands. I mean, it was exciting. You're like, our show at whatever Paradise Lounge, who knows what show we were doing, but how exciting it was to like have the opportunity to like just do that guerrilla marketing. I mean, really, that's what we should be doing.
Yeah. Although I think it's illegal to poster on because I did that when my magazine first came out. I posted all of Haight Street, and I went the next day, and all of it said it was basically recruiting bon vivants and artists. Writers and all of this, and with a picture of Lee from, Lee, Sarah from Deluxe, Lee. Yeah. Everybody knows Lee. Hi, Lee.
Miss your cocktails, man.
Oh, Mr. Cocktails. But no, I posted that night, and when my friend helped me do the whole thing, everyone, and then I came out the next morning, they were all gone. Apparently, it's like not, which is frustrating. But
well, I mean, that was the 90s when I mean, I haven't seen any good wheat pasting in a long time. I mean, but really, it's really just about spreading the message and like, forming these alliances right now is really important. Because like I said, I think there's going to be a cultural renaissance basically after COVID, and who's going to survive and who's here and what's your, what are you doing to support San Francisco, the new San Francisco?
Do you feel, this is interesting, this might be a personal, but as far as grant writing and people, SF getting more grants, and I think there's a lot more openness, hopefully, maybe I'm hoping, but for supporting like my magazine or your, your gallery, it's like we need help, and to keep the art alive, we need help from the government. We need, grants or whatever, or even donations from the locals or the community. I mean, everybody needs to help everybody. That's my point, is that I think that's even more enunciated, pronounced right now than ever.
Right. And I think you really need to start thinking more about diversity, equity, and inclusion in whatever we're doing, and especially in the arts.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a piece too that people really need to think about. We're in a different place now in 2021. There's a responsibility,
Yeah, I like the fact that you're sort of not moving out of, but you're sort of not just psychedelic art, not just, the 60s, you're sort of morphing into the, all the, like you said, the violence that's going on, and the elders and all of that. That's wonderful. Like, that's so inclusive and so refreshing and so important. With the dashes of the Stanley Mouse. I mean, it's sort of like, it's all part of it, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's sort of, it's exciting, this Stanley Mouse exhibit, it's really about storytelling. The intergenerational piece that we're trying to do here at the center, I think is really important, because look how we're communicating now over Zoom. I mean, young people are, this is what they know to do. When they step in an art gallery and see a huge piece of art, it must feel, it's a different experience than what we know it to be. So it's really important that we continue to tell stories and have the center here to sort of engage the young people who really have unfortunately grown to understand the way the culture through the screen here. I mean, this is an important thing that we have to really focus on. And so, the Stanley Mouse exhibit is just, how much history can you look through? I mean, I'm staring down the hall right now at the hot rods, and I'm just like, oh, the stories to tell.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's so funny that he's the mouse, though. He doesn't tell any stories except through the art. He barely speaks. You know that about Stanley.
I'm getting to know more about Stanley. I'm getting, that's what's been so great, is having Peter here to sort of bridge this. It's, he's been really important in establishing the work that we're doing here.
Yeah.
And this show just really brings it all to life. So.
And he was upstairs. I wasn't there for it, but Stanley actually came in and was doing the the screens and all of that, right?
Right.
Yeah, which is badass. That's like, and you have artists up there. Sort of explain that, because I don't know if a lot of people know that there's this upstairs room where there's actually art being made, right?
Or right. Well, Drew is our print shop guru. I mean, he's actually the prints that you saw earlier when you were showing us the Lunar New Year exhibit.
Yeah.
He took those messages from our elders and then created these really vibrant, prints that we were able to display. And like I said, we're working with Freddie at Family Affair and doing the Coltrane prints. And also, I should tell you, March 20th, we're going to be doing a virtual event around the Stanley Mouse exhibit. And so Drew has done some really amazing prints, some limited edition prints that will be available at that time. And so, right now, really, the studio is really alive. I think, we're really trying to connect with people in community and other artists, and to have a tangible screen print. I mean, I think people, it's like a lost art. They don't teach screen printing.
No,
and I'll tell you, another piece of my background is I used to do all the merch for one of my bands. I developed the screens in my bedroom closet. I cleaned the screens in my clawfoot tub, and I screen printed on this giant oak table. Wow. And I had one of my bandmates hold the screen down. We literally were printing, hanging the shirts in the living room. So first thing I wanted to do when I got here was pull a screen, because I was like, it's a legitimate studio. But there's something really beautiful about screen printing.
Oh yeah, it's tactile.
Right. And so, we're lucky to have that. And like I said, we're engaging artists to come in and use this space. This is one thing that we have that a lot of folks don't have, is space, the whole corner. Mm-hmm. So if you haven't been to the space, look for us after COVID, but it's a huge, beautiful space.
What is the prospects of that? Like, are people do you have any idea when the doors are like you can let people in or anything? Do we have any idea?
Well, I think we're hoping, in April for sure, for Jeremy's show, that we can have a limited capacity here and open the doors. We did a reservation process that worked out pretty well in the beginning of COVID, but now we're still in that tier where we can't really let people in. But we're hoping to have people come and see Stanley's exhibit. It'll be up through April 17th. We're going to try to keep pieces of it up as well for Jeremy's exhibit, so we can look forward to that.
Awesome.
But,
so go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and don't forget about the virtual event, because that's going to be something really special, I think, too. Just chance to walk through the exhibit with staff and take a look at some of the art, and there'll be some special offerings at that time as well.
Yeah, definitely send me all that, and I'll post it on Haight Street Voice for you for sure. All right, I want to speak to this. Let's see. Here you go. I'm gonna drop you with another background here for you. Where did I go? Here you are. Okay, there you are. Badass drummer.
Whoa! Oh! Wow. That is really there. That's really up close and hello. Wow.
That's such a badass shot. I love that. So how is it being you? And are you from the Bay Area originally? Not that it matters, but.
Well, I'm originally from Fort Wayne, Indiana. I'm a proud Hoosier. But I'm from a good group of people in Fort Wayne who all wanted to get out.
Yeah.
But I have to say, there has been a renaissance there as well. Fort Wayne is becoming a really cool little town.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a vibrant little community there. So it's kind of like the young folks decide, hey, this is an amazing historical little place. Let's make it cool. And that's kind of what's happening. It's a good vibe.
Yeah.
Um,
What
I
brought you to SF though? Was it school?
It was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I came out here and I think I arrived here in 1993. Is that right? Yeah.
And
Um,
what was your major?
I was a communications major. Yeah. Yeah.
Journalism here. That's what they called it back in the day.
Right.
I remember
Yeah.
journalism.
Yeah.
So, all right. So anyway, but rock and roll. So how is it for you? You come here, you get your communications degree, you're in bands,
Yeah.
and then how did you sort of, I mean, your evolution is really cool in doing the elders and taking care of the elders and the, social justices and things like that. And then to end up with this beautiful spot that you're sitting in right now. It's a
Right.
really interesting evolution that you've had.
Right.
Sort
Well,
of speak to that. So you sort of, you got the rock and roll out of your system, perhaps? Not really, but, you know.
well, yeah, no, it's still happening. It's smaller scale. I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, it's a sort of a therapeutic piece of what I need to do to keep my head on straight. But I think that, that picture actually, I think that was taken at the Great American Music Hall. And so I think that's a really cool thing too, is being able to play at some of these amazing venues in the city, and then also
Oh,
just touring the country, the US, and then also did some stunts in Japan and other places. I mean, really, you can't replace those memories and the things you learn when you're in a band and you're on tour.
yeah, the knitting factory. I think you played at the knitting factory, right, in
Yeah.
Brooklyn. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I think that that's the thing is, um, being here right now, it feels like all of those pieces that I've put together, from being in a band to working with seniors, fundraising, it all goes back to that idea of like telling a story. When you're on stage, you're also telling a story,
Hmm.
especially when you're on tour. You're bringing San Francisco with you. Your vibe is unique.
Yeah.
And so being able to like pass on stories, and I think it's really important. That's the one thing that art does, really. It's an opportunity to unify us. And I know you probably miss these shows too, like getting sweaty in an audience and
Oh,
being together and experiencing something so important. And like poster art, that's a moment in time, right? That's sort of a snapshot of a historical moment. I mean,
yeah.
that's just the beauty of being in this place, is like looking at all these posters and thinking, this was an important piece of San Francisco history.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think the rock and roll thing, I mean, that was a really special time in my life. And I think it informs a lot on, being able to build something on your own and feel like you can take it out to the world and get that sort of response. And then the idea of sort of being in this girl gang. I mean, the band that this was I think the People at Parties, or this might have been Von Iva. I think it was People at Parties, but these bands of being with other women on tour and showing up places and rocking out. I mean, that was,
Ah,
I mean, going from a token girl bass player to be a drummer in an all girl band is very different. Um, but yeah, so
it's like the OK Corral, and you like saunter through the swinging doors. The girls from the West.
there were some of those moments. Wow, there were some of those moments on tour. But yeah, I appreciate this. This is great to see. But it's an important piece of why I think I'm here. I think that we're all, the staff, we all have that sort of music background or interest, and it really plays into the rock and roll mentality is alive and well here at the Haight Street Art Center for sure.
Yeah. I mean, Peter McQuaid was the Grateful Dead's manager for a few years, for quite a few years, I believe.
Yeah.
You knew that, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that. Sorry, I got one more background here that I'm going to share. And I kind of wanted to allude to or speak to, well, here's a good one. But because you're my first female interview, I got that one there.
Oh, yay. That is, wow. That's amazing. I feel honored.
So there you go. Yeah. So yeah, this is my little baby. I mean, I grew up, my first concert was the Sex Pistols at Winterland in whatever that was, '78 when I was 15. So rock and roll's in my gut and in my blood, and for me, it's been storytelling and gathering stories from people like I'm doing with you right now. And it's funny. I think rock and roll and art are so intertwined, and I think that's the whole thing about San Francisco, particularly Haight Street. Is it is this crossover of art and music and fashion. I mean, all these wonderful things that there is a magic in San Francisco still, even though people are like, oh, fuck, the 60s were a million years ago, and who cares? That was the hippies, and that was then, and this is now. And it is sad that, I mean, if you walk down, I don't know when the last time you've sort of gone all the way up and down Haight. I mean, I know the lower Haight is hanging on. The few bars down there that I love are still alive, a few restaurants, and of course you guys. But the upper Haight, I mean, my God, there's just so much that's gone. But I feel like there is still, people still have this sense of, we're going to be okay. We're going to come back. We're going to, it may be different, like the SF Heritage saving that building and Norm Larson donating that beautiful corner building to be a space for history forever.
Right.
That's incredible. I mean, that's a really, really important thing, and that there's going to be you'll be able to go in there and see stuff and hear stuff, and it's not going to be a museum, as Nancy told me. I went through yesterday and hung out with her yesterday about speaking to that. But I mean, it is. What's your take on what's going to happen to a lot of these empty storefronts? I mean, what would you like to see? Maybe that's the thing. I mean, how many more restaurants do we need? Or I mean, that's kind of a vague question, but I mean, it is pretty weird that so many shops are gone.
Right. No, I think that's true. I mean, I think that I wish there was a model for this. I mean, it's just the COVID thing is really something brand new. Like how, we don't have anything to look back on and say, oh, this is what should happen. But I think it should. I mean, obviously, a space for creativity is really important. I mean, a place where people can get together and share ideas. And I should tell you too, I did have a pop-up gallery in the Mission on Lucky Street off of 24th that sort of served as a place for people to have conversation as there was gentrification happening. The one way that we could get people in to have conversation was through art. So we were hanging art and people would come in, local artists would sell art to people who were new to the neighborhood. We could have conversations, a way to unify. And we even had we had people come and serve their coffee, so that small businesses could also sort of introduce themselves in a way that makes sense and not just pop up out of nowhere. Right. So I think maybe there should be opportunities for people to create space for people who are coming in into the city and trying to learn more about what's happened in San Francisco and how they can contribute. I mean, I think creating space for arts is really important. So my vote is definitely for, artists. I mean, this whole artist in residency at Doolin Larson, I think is a really good example of how to take space and create an opportunity for engagement and growth. And so I would like to see that.
A lot of people are saying because marijuana is now legalized and everything is having the smoking lounge, having that, having a dispensary actually be a place that has maybe art and music and you can smoke weed, that kind of stuff, which I'm not a huge pothead, but I think that is, having a gathering space where it is about pot, it is about music, and it is about art. If you can have a bar where everybody's getting drunk, I don't see the problem with everybody sitting around getting stoned. I mean, I've seen, what I mean? There's a lot worse drunks than there are, stoners. But yeah, I mean, I think this is just a really remarkable time as far as what the fuck's going to happen. But I do feel like a sense of hope lately. I mean, I've been living in the hood for 30 years. I'm a block away from the Haight. Sadly, this is free form, but, I know a lot of the street people just because I'm here, every day. And if I can help them, I do. I give them food or, if they need a buck or a blanket or something. But I think it's a total of 4 of them have already died this year of fentanyl overdoses. And they're not big druggies either. A lot of these couple of them were older, actually. That's upsetting. That's really hard for me that it's that whole a lot of them want to be
Mhm.
homeless with home challenged or whatever they call it.
Mhm.
Um, but I think there needs to be a kinder viewpoint towards them rather than, oh, those dirty hippies with all their dogs and everything. I mean, yes, there's going to be some bad ones, but I think it's important to speak to that because, quite frankly, they are part of the culture. I mean, a lot of kids came here and didn't have jobs and were finding themselves through not being attached to, the
Right.
machine. So
Right.
I think that there's something valid in that. Yes, is it bad to get really fucked up on drugs or, screw yourself up? But at the same time, I think there should be a really happy medium of caring about what's going on, which our wonderful local lady Amal, who owns Amal's Deli, who really does help feed the kids and if she sees a bad scene, she'll try and help rather than just calling the cops and having it pushed away.
Right.
And that to me is like this most serious thing about community is like whether it's music, art, but it's about the people. It's about caring about people. It's about being aware of people. And maybe there is something bad going on, and that's just as important as something sad going on and helping out. I just kind of wanted to speak to that because that is obviously a part of, I used to walk around the Haight a lot more at night than I do now with all the it's not as safe. Obviously, I'm not scared. I lived in New York for 10 years. I know how to handle myself. But it's creepier. I don't know if you heard about the private investigator that got dragged with his camera. That was right next to my house. That was right in front of my house.
That is such a disturbing
In the
story.
middle of the day, Kelly. I mean, it was, and I saw, it was really disturbing. And the fact that it was middle of the day that they're right in front of his house. So that kind of stuff, by staying close knit as community, we can really help scare those fuckers away, or at least, be aware of them being around,
Right.
and but strengthen numbers. I'd like to think.
Right.
Sorry, I kind of tangentialized, but it's part of the whole thing we're speaking to.
I mean, that's great. I mean, you have the Haight Street Voice. I think it's an important outlet to like
Thanks,
sort of
son.
speak to these things too. And I'm glad to hear you raising this. It's really important. Um, especially up in Upper Haight. I see it a lot. I see it a lot more than I do down here. And I don't know
Yeah,
what that's about necessarily, but yeah, I mean, it's sad, and I think it's a hard conversation because people don't have the conversation. I think
right.
they kick people aside, they don't care,
They're
or
scared.
there's yeah. So it's important that we start having these conversations as a
Well, I
nation.
was talking to Joel Selvin about it. He was my first interview here on this HSV TV or whatever I'm calling it. But it is true that they closed down that McDonald's, and that's a place where a lot of those kids would get their dollar
Mhm.
meal and stay there all night. So that's part of it. Now they're all sort of wandering around, but it is what it is. Let's hope it gets better. Let's keep
Right.
keep showing our art and our music. Let's see, what else did I want to touch upon here? Oh, the whole lower hate, upper hate thing. Let's be the bridgers of the gap. Let's. I'll send my people down there. You send your people up here.
Yeah, yeah. Come find me, Upper Hay. I'm here for you. I'm definitely, and Linda, I'll send my people to you. I think that it's so interesting. I was just thinking about Lee actually, and I was
Yeah.
thinking about my first legal drink was uh, at Club Deluxe, and it's just funny because I got so I've been in the Lower Hay. I should say I've lived down here for almost 18 years now. So I'm literally like in the neighborhood. But it's funny because there is like, especially if you go to bars and your bartenders, there is this real like, I mean, you're not going to see some guy with a Tornado shirt going into the Club Deluxe. You're not going to see like the Club Deluxe guy coming and hanging out at Nikki's. I mean, they're
No,
real. I mean, that's just one way to speak to like the turf war or whatever. It's just how people,
it is
what part
true.
do you go to? I mean, but that's one way to talk to it. But I just think I think that it's just unfortunate. I mean, I think about Cafe International, and I just,
Mm,
it's one of my favorite places, and have been there for years. And I always feel like I'm special. It's just where you feel this warmth from the scene.
yeah.
And I think maybe there's something to that where you really love your neighborhood, and so you want to be angry about the other neighborhoods. Like my neighborhood's the best,
Maybe we're just super fucking lazy and we just don't walk farther than 5 blocks.
Must be the hill. I don't know. Must be that hill. I mean, and then you got the Visadero, who just like NOPA decided to be a neighborhood all of a sudden.
Well, yeah.
So really, maybe if we just formed an alliance, Upper Haight and Lower Haight, pissed off at NOPA, we should like a "fuck you NOPA" campaign.
Oh shit! There goes my advertising. I'm kidding.
Just kidding. Love you.
We love you, NOPA.
We do. Yeah. But it is a funny thing, you know.
It is. It is. I'd love to see a movie theater. I'd love for the Strand, the Straight Theater to come back. Wouldn't that be? I mean, the Red Vic was such a badass place. It's so sad.
Weren't they doing some performances in the window over there at the Red
Yeah, Vic? The guy was doing I think they were trying to raise money because they're on my list to find out what's going on, because they were having people stay there for low income rooms for rent, but I don't even know if that's still happening. That's someplace I do see people coming in and out still, so something's going on. I know that the clothing stores, they're closed, which is really sad. But yeah, it's still there. But I miss going to see movies there with that popcorn with the yeast on it. Remember that?
That's the first time I ever had popcorn with nutritional yeast. I tried to tell my mom about this at one time, and I was just coming back from San Francisco. She's like, "What is that? It's disgusting." I mean, I really enjoy it still. Actually,
I love it.
I wouldn't know about it though. I really would never heard about that. Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, I think this has been amazing. I think this is a great forum that you have here. It's been really fun chatting with you.
Yeah, we can even bring in more people. Like we could do it again with an artist if you wanted. It's thank you. It's new to me, but it is fun to sort of. It's wide open, but it's also the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. So it can go, but right, we're talking about the neighborhood with the global perspective. Hopefully people down on the Lower East Side will dig this about like 8th Street in New York or whatever it is. It is about, there's communities everywhere, all over the world. I lived in New York for 10 years and my neighborhood was like the Lower 8th Street, so, and they have art galleries and they have music and, so thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. Storytelling, you keep talking about storytelling through art. I mean, I just love hearing story. I don't know what I'm doing, so I like to ask other people, what the fuck are you doing?
Right, that's good.
It's kind of where I know a few things, but yeah, so thank you so much for your time, and let's stay in touch, and let's hang out and have a drink for real.
I think that's the next step. That's the next step.
Okay.
Linda and I will let you guys know where we'll be if you want to come say hi.
Perfect. All right. On that note. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, we'll see you.
Look forward to next time.
All right. Peace.
Bye.
Bye. Love you.